being recorded.
Hello and welcome back to the Health and Harmony Goals podcast. We are obviously your hosts, B and Rox, and we are here again today to speak about something super cool. So we thought we'd chat a little bit about the topic of unlearning things instead of, I think we always focus on educating yourself in all different aspects of life, but these are some things that you can look at unlearning instead of learning.
Exactly. I think we learn so much stuff from society, from our parents, from schooling, from all that jazz that really isn't like ideal for our mindset, our growth, our expansion. And these are some of the things that we just thought we'd touch on that you can start to unlearn, because these are the things that are probably holding you back from stepping into your higher self, to finding like complete happiness and joy and self-acceptance, self-love, self-worth, all the beautiful things that we need more of in our lives. So I think the first one is pretending to be okay. And I think this is such a like tough guy mentality that we've all been not forced to take on, but like in the world that we live in today, we all kind of have to, well, we feel like we have to like not show our weaknesses, not show our vulnerabilities, not show when we're upset, when we're not doing okay. And it's such bullshit, because as humans, we always say this, as humans, we need connection, we need support. And by learning that it is okay not to be okay, and letting people know so that they can help us, they can assist us in whatever we may need, in whatever we may be going through, it's actually such a powerful thing that can really help us to overcome whatever we are struggling with a lot easier than just by pretending that we're okay.
I agree. I feel like it's one of those things that's been like drilled into our heads from smaller. I think especially, I mean, this is going towards the gender side of things, but I think especially with males, like everyone's taught that you need to be super strong and you have to have like this hard face, or you have to, I mean, you might have a dad or a mom who is like that, and they've drilled that into your head. Like you have to always put on this front and act like everything's okay. Meanwhile, you're like crumbling on the inside. And like Rox and I always talk about, if you're not going to face those like little demons, or if you don't face the little bumps in the road, by the time you get to the end of the road or halfway through your little journey, there's going to be so much explosion happening that you have to work through, because you haven't worked through what you needed to work through at the time that it became present in your life. So it's okay, like Rob said, not to be okay. And I think we need like more of that in the world anyway, for people to be real. Social media is so fake. Rox was speaking about this the other day on her story, but just saying like, you watch these stories of people every day and you see, you know, they're living their best life, or they're happy all the time, they're in such a good mental state. And it's so important to know that everyone does go through these patches where they aren't okay. And we can also have bad mental days or bad mental weeks or months or however long it is. And it's okay not to be okay. Just work through your stuff.
Yeah, and I love what you said about like the explosion, because when you pretend to be okay all the time, you are essentially bottling up all of your emotions, and we all know that just leads to a massive eruption, sexual as that sounds. I think processing and dealing with the feels is something that's so important, because it helps you to process, it helps you to overcome whatever issues you're having, to see what might have caused it, what needs to be worked on, and it just helps you to be a stronger person at the end of the day. So I love that you touched on that as well.
Yes. And then the next one is staying in toxic relationships because you believe that it's necessary. So I think that's the entire basis of a toxic relationship. Everyone believes that they need to stay, or they have to stay, or that they are unworthy to be with somebody else. I think a lot of people have been in toxic relationships in their life. My first boyfriend that I ever had was toxic. I was 16 years old, and, you know, I was made to believe like I would never be somebody with someone else, or I was only ever going to be loved by that person. And it's a really difficult thing to go through. And whether it's somebody that's making you feel like you have to stay, or whether it's yourself that's making you feel like you have to stay, at the end of the day, if there is that inkling that you need to leave, you probably are in a toxic relationship, but you keep pulling yourself back. So I think it's super important to unlearn that we have to stay in toxic relationships. You don't have to stay in a toxic relationship. It is never necessary. It is more necessary to move on from that toxic relationship than it is to stay in it. It's not teaching you anything. It's probably just breaking you down at the end of the day.
100%. And I think a lot of it also boils down to self-worth. I mean, that might trigger some people, but I think a lot of people, like you said, stay in these toxic relationships because they believe they don't deserve any better, or they maybe believe that that's what they deserve. And this can stem from like, maybe your parents had a toxic relationship growing up, so that's all that you really know, or maybe you were told growing up that you weren't pretty enough, or you weren't clever enough, you weren't whatever enough. And this is now filtered into your belief system that you don't really deserve to have someone who treats you like a princess, who puts you first above everything else, who would never lay a hand on you, whatever type of toxic kind of relationship you may find yourself in. I think it's just so important to remember that you are so worthy, and what you put up with is what you're going to have to put up with for the rest of your life if you don't realize that these toxic relationships are not what you have to almost settle for, in a way, if that's the right word to use.
It is. I completely agree with that point.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been seeing a quote, I can't think of it now, but it's basically like, the amount of effort like someone puts into the relationship with you shows how much they actually care about you. So if you are with someone who treats you like shit, who never makes the time for you, they don't really love you. So that should be your first and surefire sign that you should be getting the fuck out of there, because why do you want to spend the rest of your life with someone who doesn't love you, who doesn't make you a priority, who's never going to treat you the way that you deserve to be treated?
I love that you touched on that, because I think it's also one of those sayings that I really love is also, it goes something along the lines of like, if somebody is treating you badly, or if people like say don't want to spend time with you, whatever the situation is, however much effort your partner is putting into your relationship is not a reflection on you, it's a reflection on them. And I think it's important to realize that at the end of the day, and to remember that, because a lot of people can take it super personally and feel like they've done something wrong, or I mean, barring that you haven't done something wrong, because you may have, but if you are in what you feel is a normal relationship, I mean, yes, we all quarrel, we all have our good days and we have our bad days. Barring you haven't done anything completely terribly to your partner, they're not putting in effort and they don't want to be with you, or they don't make the time for you, but they make time for everything else, or you know that your relationship is toxic. Just remember, at the end of the day, it's so easy to beat yourself up and think that it's because of you, or you've made that person treat you that way. It's either you that's telling yourself that, or they could be making you feel that way too. But at the end of the day, it's a reflection on them, not a reflection on you.
100%. I actually love that you say that. I was listening to a podcast this morning when I was while I was having a bath and stuff. And she was also saying, like, growing up, she was bullied a lot. And some revelation that she had was that the things that people are bullying you for is not showing your weakness, it's showing their weakness. So that's pretty much like what you made me think of now, because yeah, it's true. If people are putting you down, calling you names, treating you like shit, it's actually a sign that there's something wrong with them. They've got some insecurity, they've got some limiting belief that is being triggered by you. It has nothing to fucking do with you. So that's another good thing. I think a good thing to remember in any circumstance in your life is that people, when they lash out, it is not you, it's them. It's like that relationship. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. It's not you, it's me.
Okay. Then the next thing you need to unlearn is your limiting beliefs. And this goes so deep because everyone has so many different limiting beliefs. But I think like the biggest limiting beliefs that I deal with on a daily basis are self-worth. I'm not good enough, which we've already covered. Also money beliefs, like I'll never be rich. I was born poor, I'll die poor. Only evil people have money. So there's so many limiting beliefs that we could go on forever about. But I think it's so important to recognize the beliefs that are holding you back that are keeping you stuck, keeping you stagnant, and really start to explore these beliefs. Where did they come from? Why do I believe this? Was it something my mom said growing up? Was it something that someone teased me about while I was growing up? Whatever it may be, and to actually start unlearning them, because limiting beliefs literally fuck your mind about everything, and they are just learned beliefs that you learned from something, from some situation, some person growing up, and they're absolutely bullshit. Like, it's the one thing I think that holds so many people back from being successful, being happy, being whatever it may be, is these bloody limiting beliefs. So if you have any limiting beliefs, I would highly recommend to start jotting them down and start to do some deep inner work to figure out where they came from and starting to unlearn them, because it will set you free.
I like that you spoke about money, because I feel like that is a big limiting belief that a lot of us have. And it's also, like you say, based on what we've been taught from our parents. And like Rox is saying, like, write down all your limiting beliefs. But sometimes I think that our limiting beliefs are so like deeply rooted that you don't even realize you have a limiting belief around that topic or that subject in your life. And I always think about with the money situation, I'm like, I know for a fact I have limiting beliefs when it comes to, and it's because of the way we were brought up. And not to say that there's anything wrong with our parents. Like we always say, our parents did the best with what they could. And our parents weren't trying to make us have limiting beliefs in any sort of way. But I always think about the topic of when people say money doesn't buy happiness. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yes, money might not buy you happiness, because you have to be happy from the inside out, and we have to be happy with ourselves. But at the end of the day, why can't you draw a correlation between money and happiness? Like, you can be happy with money. Mm-hmm. It's not that money is the root of all evil, and you can't be happy if you are rich. It's a whole lot of hogwash. So I genuinely believe if you are happy, you can be happy with money. And that's a limiting belief that we've been taught from young, is that money doesn't buy you happiness. And no, it won't. But it drills some sort of a limiting belief into your mind. And if you have limiting beliefs around money, that's probably one of them, because I know that's mine.
That's such a good one, actually, because it's such an age-old saying. And yes, like you're saying, it can't physically buy you happiness. But I do believe that these limiting beliefs that we have around money that stop us from earning what we could. The universe is abundant. We can earn whatever much money we want at the end of the day. But I completely agree with you, because I think the one thing that money does bring is the sense of security and financial freedom, which doesn't mean that you're free of financial issues, but it means that you don't have to worry about paying your bills, and you don't have to worry about like how you're going to put food on the table. Those are the kind of things where money, I do believe, brings you not just happiness, but a sense of like peace in your mind, because you know that no matter what happens, you're not going to have to worry about these little things that money can also create unhappiness about in your life. So I like that you touched on that, because I think it is, people are like, money can't buy you happiness, but it can really help you get to a happier state in your life.
Completely. It's like money doesn't grow on trees. And just like you were saying now, the universe is abundant. Like, you can literally earn whatever you put out into the universe. And those are all you're taught from a young age. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money doesn't buy you happiness. Like, why is money the root of all evil? Like, human beings are the root of all evil. Like, we are our own. Got nothing to do with money.
That is the truth, Cole. That is the truth.
It's got nothing to do with money. So get rid of your limiting beliefs. That's one thing that you need to unlearn. Then is beating yourself up. So like we were talking about earlier with toxic relationships, I think it all boils down to a low self-esteem or a low self-worth or self-image or whatever you want to call it. But beating yourself up is never, ever, ever going to be beneficial, ever. So it's much easier to do than to blame someone else. Yes, some people find it easier to blame other people for their problems, but a lot of us find ourselves doing negative self-talk or entertaining the fact that we are the root of all our problems. And I think it's so much easier to beat yourself up than to just work through a problem and be like, okay, what is the actual issue here? Or what is the root of this problem? How do I move forward from this? You don't need to beat yourself up. Like Rox and I speak about all the time, the more negative self-talk you're participating in, the more you're going to feel worse, or the worse you're going to feel. My English was terrible there, but the worse you'll feel if you are beating yourself up. So try not to beat yourself up. I know it is easier said than done. Sorry if you hear anything in the background, guys. I've obviously had my baby now, so she's making noise. Like, this is, we always have dogs and now we have babies in the podcast. But don't beat yourself up. You can think of many ways to work through things. I mean, whether, like we always say, it takes writing something down, or whether you have your own process of working through things. You don't need to beat yourself up. You literally are going to dig yourself into a hole of negativity, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, and if there's one thing we all know about the past, is that you can't change it. So beating yourself up about a mistake that you made, or something you did that maybe wasn't the best thing you could have done, is not going to change the fact that that has happened. The best thing I think that you can do is to look back on these things as lessons, like we always say, failures, feedback, and learn how you can go forward and avoid repeating the same mistakes, the same I feel like mistakes isn't even a good word, because a lot of us just fuck up, to be honest. We make fuck ups, we do things we shouldn't do, we hurt people we shouldn't hurt, we make selfish decisions, whatever it is. We're human, we make mistakes, we all fuck up, and that's how we learn to be better people. So by beating yourself up, you are literally just like keeping yourself in a whole loop of replaying this one thing that you might have done once in your life that hurt a lot of people, or like completely changed your life, or whatever it may be. It's not going to change the fact that that happened. But if you start to now focus on, all right, how am I going to not do that again in my life? What lessons have I learned from this situation? What lessons can I take forward with me as a reminder on the daily basis to not make these same mistakes again? That's when you start to become a better person. Not by like, oh, woe is me, I'm so sad, I'm such a terrible person, I'm never gonna, like, I don't deserve love because I cheated on my boyfriend, or I don't deserve a big happy family because like I took the job that my sister really wanted, or whatever the fuck it may be. Like, that is not going to change your situation going forward. Just looking forward, taking those lessons through with you, and just being a better person going forward is the only thing you can do. So I think beating yourself up about anything is just a complete waste of time, because you are literally firstly focusing on the negative. And we speak about the law of attraction all the time, which means you're just going to bring more of negativity into your life, where you could actually reframe the whole situation, take the positives, which is the lessons that you've learned, and use those going forward to create a better story for yourself.
I like to always use I've done it since I was younger, but there's a saying that I always try to think about when it's in these situations where you feel like Roxy's saying, I mean, you can't change the outcome. Everything that's happened has happened. There's no point in beating yourself up. But I think a nice way to look at it is to realize that I always say everything is either a blessing or a lesson. So you're either blessed by a situation, or by a person, or by a relationship, or you can take it as a lesson. Like Rox was saying, we all fuck up, we all make mistakes. It's part of being human beings. So just try to think about the positive side and be like, okay, well, what was this for me? Was it a blessing or was it a lesson? Like, that's one thing that can help you move forward instead of beating yourself up.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Like, I'm just imagining like a piece of paper where it's like one column for blessing, one column for
yes.
lesson.
I have so many people I can write under each column. Let me tell you.
Like, you shit, but I love you.
Literally, you're gone, okay, lesson. Okay, you're a blessing, you're a lesson. I literally used to do that as a joke, but now it's much more real.
Okay, the next thing to unlearn, and I mean, this kind of goes back to the first thing you said, but minimizing or ignoring your feelings. And I think, sure, this can also go so deep, but just remember that, and I also heard this in a podcast this morning, we are all equal. We all deserve the same things. We all, basically, I think like what I'm trying to say here in a roundabout way is that your feelings are not less valid than anyone else. We are all equal. We all deserve the same amount of love. We all deserve the same amount of appreciation. whatever it is. So just remember that your feelings are valid. Don't minimize them. I think we tend to look up to certain people and look down on certain people, and that way we put certain people on pedestals. Oh my gosh, you should see my dog is literally outside my window. I don't know what he's standing on. He's just looking at me in the eyes. I'm like, well, how did you get there?
How did you get there?
Sorry, yeah. So, like I was saying, you tend to put people on pedestals, and maybe we tend to feel like their feelings are more valid. And in those people's presence, like, oh, why would they care about my bad day, or the fact that I'm feeling really depressed, or the fact that like my husband's beating me, whatever your situation might be. And then you have other situations, and I know so many people like this, where you feel like your feelings are more valid than theirs, and they can sit there for hours telling you how terrible their day's been, how terrible their life is, but they never take 1 second to ask you how you are doing. So I think recognizing that we are all valid, we are all worthy to be heard and to be understood, and our feelings are all worthy to be heard and to be understood is such an opening thing, because it then again allows us to feel okay to share our feelings with other people, to tell people that we are not okay, but in the same way also give enough time for other people's feelings so that we can have a equal exchange of love and appreciation, and just exchanging feelings and helping each other out. I think that was a very long way of saying one thing. Sorry.
No, don't say sorry, girl. I'm like, that's what we're here to do, is talk. Literally, that's the whole point of this podcast. I completely agree with you. I was actually thinking now while you were talking, I was like, I literally don't have anything else to say about this point, just because you made it so clear. But it's like we always say, what is the point of ignoring your feelings? Every feeling that you feel like you are going to ignore or you want to ignore is going to come out at some point. So whether it's now, whether it's in the future, I mean, some people have repressed feelings from when they were kids and they are dealing with it as adults. So, I mean, it's just your choice about when you really want to deal with your situation, because it's not going to go away. So choose your time. The time is now. There's no time like the present to work through your feelings.
Yeah, I think that there's something so powerful and freeing in like opening up, and especially in a group environment. And I learned this last weekend because I've joined a new program where there's like 13 women, and we had a call on the Saturday where we all just spoke about why we joined, what issues we've had that relate to this. And it was so beautiful to see how just being vulnerable in front of so many people, even though it was on a Zoom call, so it's not like people were like hugging you and giving you like a high five and don't worry, girl, like we all go through the same thing. It was just such a beautiful thing to see people being so vulnerable in front of each other. And it's actually made us all so close. I mean, we've all met each other once. So really just opening up and sharing your feelings with people can really create a deeper bond with the people around you. So that's also something I think is something that we need to unlearn, because we all cut each other off from each other by not like sharing our vulnerabilities and our feelings. And this is a beautiful way to bond with someone, to draw someone closer.
I love that.
Okay, next.
Vulnerable. Yeah, so the next one is that you don't deserve good things when they happen. So I think that's also kind of like a victim mentality. A lot of people, I mean, I don't know why I always bring up the conversation or the example of school, but I always remember at school, like you would have people that would get like 98% for their exam, and then they would be so upset afterwards because they were just like, I didn't do well enough, or like, this is not good enough. And people like really believe that they don't deserve good things when they happen, or something really good happens to you and you're like, I know it's really good and I'm appreciative, but I would have rather it happened for somebody else. And if you're not going to accept or appreciate the good things that are happening to you and for you, how are you going to manifest and bring on more good into your life if you can't really appreciate what's happening at the moment? And whatever is happening for you is happening for a reason. Like Rox and I always say, whatever's set out in the universe is already set out in the universe. Yes, of course, we can change things by manifesting them, but you can't change the past. And whatever's being given to you, and however good it may be, I mean, it may be the best thing in the world for you, or it maybe just be something, I mean, you found a 10 Rand note on the floor. You could find that 10 Rand note on the floor and be like, wow, this is like the best day ever. Or you could pick up the 10 Rand note and be like, you know what, I wish somebody else actually found this. They probably need it more than me. Yes, I understand where your point of view may be that someone may need it more than you, but there's a reason you found that 10 Rand note and there's a reason something good happened to you that day. So appreciate the good that's happening for you and it will manifest into more, I feel.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, as women as well, I think it's so important for us to take on this unlearning lesson, because how many times has it happened in your life? And I'm sure everyone that's listening is going to resonate with this. But when someone pays you a compliment, like if someone says, "Oh my gosh, you look so pretty today," and you're like, "Oh, what do you mean? Like I had no sleep last night. I've got bags on my eyes." We're always deflecting compliments away from us. And it's so sad because someone is literally telling you that you look beautiful today, and you're basically telling them to fuck off, you're telling a lie. So I think like a small way that we can start to unlearn these thoughts that we don't deserve good things is to start just accepting compliments. Like if someone tells you you're looking great, be like, "Thank you so much. I'm actually so happy you noticed, because I've been eating healthy and I've been going on walks, or I've started a new skincare routine," or whatever the hell it may be that's got you looking so damn fine today. Like just accept the compliment. I also think like if we start to view it as being rude when you deflect a compliment, it makes it a lot easier for you to accept the compliment, because someone's literally like telling you that you have a beautiful voice or whatever the compliment may be, and you telling them they fucking crazy. So I think there's two ways you can like start to practice unlearning this idea that we don't deserve good things, by just accepting compliments and saying thank you to people instead of like spinning back some other bullshit excuse that you're not pretty in their face.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, then the last one, and this, I mean, you've already touched on it, but we need to unlearn that being vulnerable is a sign of weakness. Again, it's this macho mentality of you can't, like, big girls don't cry, real men don't drink pink drinks, like all these sayings that we've been like that have been ingrained and repeated to us growing up our entire lives is absolute bullshit. When you show vulnerability, like I was saying about the group situation with the ladies that I'm in, when you show vulnerability, it really helps to create a deeper bond, because you are showing that person that you trust them enough to tell them something about yourself that you would not normally tell other people. That already makes that person be like, "Oh damn, Roxy actually really values this bond that we have, and now that she feels comfortable enough with me to tell me that I don't know, whatever sad story I might have, I can now feel comfortable enough to maybe tell her stuff. And now we've got an even closer friendship, because I know that she'll be there for me and I'll be there for her." So this whole vulnerability as a weakness is such a bullshit thing that we've all been taught. And I think it's really time that we start to show more vulnerability in everything that we do, showing our weaknesses, asking for help. There's so many things where we hide the vulnerable parts of ourselves, and it just makes life so much harder. Like men not asking for directions, just ask for fucking directions. Yeah. Get there then.
Ask for the fucking directions. It's like we've been watching the show Married at First Sight. And literally there's a couple on there that the lady in the relationship is like not so into her husband, because she's like, "I need a man's man, like he's too emotional, like he speaks too much about his feelings, whatever." And I'm just going like, who the hell do you think you are? Like this guy is literally so vulnerable. He's like opening up, he's trying to like be vulnerable, you know? And that's exactly what you were talking about, like with real men don't drink pink drinks or whatever the situation is. Like a lot of men were taught that they shouldn't speak about their feelings, or like it's weak to cry, or, you know, all of these little subjects. And to put someone in a box and be like, "You're being too vulnerable, like you're sharing too much about your feelings." There is never sharing too much. Like you should be able to share whatever's comfortable for you. And the people that love and accept you are the people that should be in your circle. And the other people that don't accept what you're doing should not be. So I thought I would just add that point because it made me think about that show. I was like, so angry. I was like, who the hell is this chick think she is? Like, this is a big man and he's like out there being vulnerable, and she's like, no, too vulnerable for me, thank you very much.
Yeah. And I mean, that just goes to show how again, like we say, our parents did the best they could for us, but you'll probably find that she's got some like macho like dad who never ever showed vulnerability, and that was probably him having a dad like that, and like it goes so deep. So there are so many things I think we need to unlearn, and we've just touched on 7 things. But I think the biggest thing that we all need to just realize is that we should always question the things that we have been taught as normal, because we have been taught so much fucking bullshit growing up. The world is such a beautiful changing place where we have more access to information, we have more access to help, we have more access to people, to things. So it's just a beautiful time to be able to start like really changing our minds, changing our perception, changing our beliefs, because the world is changing. And like we say, the only constant is change. And when we start to unlearn these things that are not serving us any longer as a person, as a community, as a whole, it really helps us as a community and a collective to shift into a more conscious state, if that makes sense. And to also start being more of a community. We are so like drilled with fear and like bullshit every day of our lives, and it's just drawing people further and further away from each other. And I think now, especially in a time like now, we need to come together as a community and just love each other, help each other, be there for each other, because love is going to save the world. That's my hippie rant.
So cute. I was literally like, that's such a great point to end off on. I'm not even going to add anything after that. Love is going to save the world.
I'm like, and world peace.
Yes. Thank you very much.
This
is South Africa.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we have for you today. I hope you guys found some value. If so, let us know. Oh my gosh, guys, I have to take a picture. My dog is literally trying to break into my window. We'll put it on our Instagram page. Yeah, like we said, leaving us reviews really just helps other people to find our podcast. But we love you guys a long time, and we will catch you next week.
Toodaloo.